Okay, everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be going over the survivor approach for week 10. And we've done really, really well. We could have gotten just, we really could have knocked out the whole country last week. We had we had a really, really super popular Pittsburgh that was literally on the ropes against Dallas, and they just, that's why Dallas is terrible. They just couldn't quite get there for us. So our equity that we picked up last week was again more of the delayed equity than the immediate equity, because we did save Pittsburgh. So we'll be able to use them when all those people that burned them last week are not going to be able to. And Tennessee was a good play. They won pretty handily, I guess. New England got really, really lucky near the end. So if you played them, you got through also. So overall, we've done a really, really nice job kind of just, dancing and kind of maneuvering ourselves as we get into these later weeks when a lot of people are going to be running out of teams. And also, for some pools, you're going to be going into double pick weeks. Like one pool I'm in goes to double picks now. It's another interesting pool that one of the sharp guys on sharp guys out there on 2+2 or whatever. He's in a pool where you actually have to pick one team on Thanksgiving and another team that week, which is almost impossible. So there are, because of COVID, they did put in some interesting rules this year. And yeah, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go through the normal analysis with the caveat that it really does depend in some sense on what type of pool you're in. And I'm going to try to go through some of that, but hopefully this is going to be helpful. So again, what are we looking at? We're looking for teams with high expected value, that being teams with high winning chances, but also teams that are not very popular, because you have two teams that are of equal winning chances. The one that is less popular, you're going to be afforded a lot of leverage. And likewise, you're going to want to avoid teams that you have plans for in the future. That being, that teams have certain future value to you. And as we get here, we're going to go into a little more detail about future value, because it's not just, oh, they're going to be a big favorite later, so I'm going to want to use them. There are some teams that, while they may look like they have future value, they don't have the same future value to you. Because, like, let's say, for example, that you like a big favorite out in week 15, for example, and you save them for that, but they're also going to be a team that's so widely available, they're going to be, say, a really high-owned favorite. You're going to end up probably wanting to fade them anyway. So for you, that team, while it looks like they have future value kind of on this grid, really doesn't have any future value, because you're never going to play them because they're going to be that popular. So that's honestly kind of like fourth level shit, so to speak, that, even some of the good survivor players don't really factor in. That it's not just saving, it's not just avoiding teams with future value. It's realizing which of those teams actually does have future value, okay? And which teams you're just going to end up fading anyway, so they really don't have future value. Hopefully we'll get some examples of that either this week or as the weeks go on. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to rank these teams by immediate EV. And so here's a great example of the way immediate EV works. You have the two teams that are most likely winners, Green Bay and New Orleans, that are appearing way down the list of good EV teams. For those of you who've been following along, you can already know why that is, and that's because you'll see that Green Bay's upwards of 50 to 60% owned, and New Orleans is about 25% owned. So those teams just kind of fall down the list sort of when it comes to expected value. On the other hand, you have a team like Baltimore, who has not quite as good winning chances, but they're only going to be owned by 2% of the pool, which is what makes their expected EV, immediate EV, skyrocket up to the top of the list. Second on the list is Pittsburgh, we just alluded to. They currently are the second best EV team because they do have a real good winning chance, 73%. But as you'll see, only about 4 or 5% of people are going to take them because, as we kind of predicted, right, all those people that took them last week just don't have them available anymore, right? People either burned them in week 1 or yesterday, or Sunday, I should say, And so that's why they're going to be low owned. So their EV is right alongside of Baltimore as top. And then before you even get to these Green Bay, New Orleans, you also have two other plays that are just rated to be really, really low owned that have decent winning chances. One of them being Detroit and the other one being Tampa. Now, again, if you've been following my advice, you probably used Tampa already. But if you didn't, then they're certainly going to be in play somewhat from a pure EV perspective. So we're not quite done yet. I did mention Green Bay, New Orleans. Yes, there are highly owned, but they have huge winning chances. That's why their EV is this top 10. And then there's Vegas. Vegas, again, their EV is on par with Green Bay, New Orleans. So if you were just ranking them by EV, it would be Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and then kind of like a second tier of Detroit and Tampa. But that's not the end of the story, because you have to figure out which of these teams you're going to want to use in the future and which of these teams you're not. So, like, between Baltimore and Pittsburgh, okay, let's have a quick look. So Pittsburgh, I know we're going to be wanting to make them somewhat available in Week 11. Yes, there is LAC, which is kind of an equally good favorite. But again, LAC in Week 11 is going to be so popular because everybody has them available that, again, it could be worth saving Pitt to get that extreme leverage. Okay. If you go to Week 12, really nothing for Pittsburgh. If you go to Week 13 could be a very interesting week for Pittsburgh, okay? Because what's going to happen, if I'm correct, is Baltimore is going to take some money. Kansas City is not going to be very highly available, so they might not take that much. And Seattle is going to be through the roof, right? Everybody's got them available. They're a huge favorite. So they're going to garner a lot of ownership. So it's possible that Pittsburgh could be a great leverage play in 13 as well. So Pittsburgh does have some really sneaky future value here. 14, no. 15, no, not really. We have good plans for 15. Actually, we'll get to it later. We get to 16. I mean, we're not worried about that really. And we're not going to even 17. So Pittsburgh, remember, we're analyzing these two top plays, Pittsburgh and Baltimore, who has the most future value. And Pittsburgh definitely looks like you have some sneaky leverage. Now let's take a look at Baltimore. Baltimore, yes. Baltimore looks like, okay, so Week 11, no big deal. They don't look to be that great of a thing. Week 12, no. Do we have to buy in Week 12? No, they're at Pitt Week 12, so they're out there. So they're a big deal in 13. Okay, so 13 would be the first place they have big value, and then not until 15, which they have incredible value there. So Baltimore has big value in 13 and 15, and then also in 16, actually. See that one? So Baltimore, between Baltimore and Pitt, I think if we assess these, I think we'll agree that Baltimore has the higher future value. In other words, more likely that we will end up using Baltimore than we will Pitt. So between the two of these, I believe that Pittsburgh is going to be the better of the two plays. Now, again, you have to watch this because, Big Ben was placed on the COVID list. And so, you want to make sure he's playing. More to the point, you want to make sure that the winning chances remain the same. In other words, you watch the line movement and, make sure that they do represent still this high EV play. So between those two teams, Baltimore and Pitt, I think Pitt's slightly better, but I'm not going to talk you off of Baltimore here. Now, with these other two tiers, this other tier, this Detroit-Tampa tier, to me, this is simple. So Detroit, now again, you got to watch this because, this price is probably based on Stafford playing. So if he doesn't play, then obviously these guys fall off. Detroit is now or never. Right? You're never going to use them again. They have very, and it says it's even here, zero future value. Where on the other hand, Tampa, they can have some value in 14, and if you're lucky enough to get that far, week 17. So between Detroit and Tampa, I think it's not even close. I think that Detroit becomes the superior play. So what do you do with Green Bay and New Orleans? Okay, I will tell you that I am going to be saving them, right? Because if you look ahead to week number 11 and 12, so first of all, 11, you're probably going to want to have the Saints available to play off this Chargers leverage, right? Because Chargers going to be really high owned. And also, more to the point, in week 12 is a shit show. Okay, there's very few good options in week 12. A lot of people burn Miami. Most people burn the Rams. Most people burn Buffalo. Most people burn Cleveland. So Green Bay and New Orleans are going to be really necessary. So if you can possibly save Green Bay and or New Orleans, this is a week where it's not there's a lot of great options underneath. So if you can somehow save Green Bay and New Orleans, that would be extremely strong. But at the very least, if you can save one of them, so let's say you have, so yes, you could get away with playing Green Bay or New Orleans this week and just resign yourself to playing the other one in week 12. But the thing is week 11. So let's just say that you don't play Pitt this week. Then you can play Pitt in week 11. All right, that works. Or LAC. Let's say if you don't play Green Bay or New Orleans this week, you could play, this would be a nice place to slot New Orleans as a little bit of leverage maybe. So what do you do between those two teams? I think, again, if I had to pick one for this week, I would say to burn Green Bay. Because, again, I think that New Orleans has that. If we assume that Green Bay and New Orleans are kind of equal between 10 and 12, I think that at least New Orleans has availability in 11 that makes them somewhat more needed, all right, and especially in double picks. So for me, I would probably avoid New Orleans between these two chalks. I would rather play Green Bay. And that's where I would go. I'm not going to play Vegas at this price because, believe it or not, they're sneaky. They have some sneaky value in week 13 against the Jets. Okay, and week 13 could be, if you end up burning Pittsburgh, you're going to maybe want, or Baltimore, you might want a second option there. So Vegas, I think these are pretty pure. I think that Vegas, New Orleans, and Green Bay, I think are all pretty equal with respect to what you want to do. So I guess what I would say with those three teams is, who do you have left? If you don't have Green Bay, if you already burned Green Bay, for example, which you shouldn't have, you've been following my picks, then yeah, you can go to either New Orleans or Vegas. But I do think the majority of your exposure should be up here, should be either Baltimore, Detroit, or Pittsburgh. And I know Detroit seems like kind of a mad scientist type play when you have this other stuff going on. But you know what? That's what you got to do sometimes, And especially with when you have double picks in the offing coming, you're going to want to save these better teams for those double picks. So what does all this mean? What all this means is that I can't make your picks for you because I don't know exactly what kind of pool you're in. I don't know who's taking what. But this is the process. This is the way you have to look at it. It depends on what pool I'm in because I'm in a lot of different pools, and one of them I just kind of rerouted in a direction I really didn't want to go. So I might have to gamble it up a little bit and just go for power and take Detroit. Again, it just depends on the strength of your entry in some of your pools. So for me, I guess Pittsburgh would be the top pick, maybe. Pitt slightly better than Baltimore, with Detroit as your aggro play. I don't think I'm going to get there with Green Bay and New Orleans this week. I just don't. Again, and that's just the way I play. I certainly cannot fault you for Or can I fault you? Is this like a real fish play to take teams that you know are going to have the worst of it EV wise, and they also have future value? Yeah, I think it is. I think it's a fish play. I'm going on record as saying you don't want to play Green Bay and you don't want to play New Orleans. I would play Pitt. I would play Baltimore, and I would play Detroit. That's about it. Hopefully we get lucky and the other people don't. Now, again, this got to watch the COVID stuff for Big Ben and for Stafford. But that's fine because the betting odds will adjust and you'll be able to make your adjustments accordingly. That's about it. I'll hopefully see you next week.